Carlos, okay, you have been the person so far. Well, nothing is wrong with that, right? You've had some controversy surrounding you, and they say in politics, if nobody talking about you, then you're not doing something right. You've made some comments, you've made the news several times here and there. You've been, this is OMG. You're a girls, man. Nothing wrong with that. You plan to get married soon? We the people need to know these things. We the people need to know these things. You know what I mean?
As soon as I find
so you
bride, I will consider.
You're presently not in a relationship, Carlos?
No, not at present.
Not at present. All right. What's that?
Getting my boat as well.
Single boat. Single. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, cool. All right. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. You would have made some statements back then, Carlos, about Kingan people who sitting in their porch looking down at the sea and Beckway. To the effect, to the words to that effect, they don't understand because they're okay. Do you think that was an appropriate statement?
Well, good question. In fact, you're quoting from a headline, I think, which was a misrepresentation of what I said. And I believe that is stemming from an Eyewitness News broadcast, I believe. If you read that entire article, it sets out and articulates exactly the point I was raising. Now, it was at a rally in Chateaubriand, and I was explaining to the people in North Leeward, and I am associating this with other vulnerable constituencies and communities, where this government is spending a significant amount of resources on the social programs, Lives to Live, farmer support, and all these housing, education, these are the programs which traditionally you would not find a young man from Rosebank, the area which Emran is from. Just a few months ago, a young man from Rosebank went off to Cuba to study medicine. The doctor in Fituse is in fact a resident of the Fituse community. He also went off to study under the Unity Labour Party government. That is where the government is spending its monies and resources. What I did say is that there are some persons, NDP persons, I did not generalize the statement. The quotation is there to show the NDP persons, and I identified certain areas in which some of these persons are residing, and they have certain meetings which I am aware of. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. You're
by Candyville.
No, not aware of that one.
But they have meetings every Saturday.
I have no idea about that. But the point I'm making is that I've been in the presence of some persons who are NDP, who believes that the ULP government is spending too much money to help poor people, and that more money should be spent to cushion and support the business class. And it is a statement I stand by. The misrepresentation of the statement is in fact it is.
What was the misrepresentation?
The generalization of the location where the persons are from, not identifying
what exactly
the
was your
political
statement?
affiliation.
What exactly was your statement?
I quoted it. The NDP, there are persons within the NDP who have meetings in certain places, and identified some of the places where they sit and have coffee meetings and so on, and they criticize the government, and they say, look, why is Ralph spending money to do this and to do that? Why is Ralph doing this in that area? And what they're accustomed to traditionally, being, is that they're accustomed to the container loads of duty-free concessions. And the facts are there. If you go back through the records, you would see the amount of persons who receive duty-free concessions and then will then sell at a high markup these products back to consumers. So they wanted to enjoy that type of free loading off of the government coffers. But the government is saying, you must pay VAT. You must contribute to our economic development by taxes. And these resources that the government collect, we're taking that and spending it in areas which are vulnerable.
But I don't see a connection to
deal with poverty.
People don't like poor people.
To deal with poverty, to deal with education, to deal with housing. And in fact, if you notice, the government, since it took office in 2001, the indigent level, extreme poverty, moved from somewhere about close to 30% to under 3%.
Okay, but
that is remarkable, and that is where the government resources are being spent. And there are persons who are critical of that. And that is the point I was making. NDP persons were critical of that because they want the concessions. They don't want to pay taxes.
Do you still stand by the point that these people do not like poor people?
Well, if you're critical of the government spending resources in vulnerable areas to assist persons, like constituencies in North Leeward, in North Windward, in Central Leeward and so on, then I am of the opinion that you're critical of these people and these persons getting assistance. So then clearly in my mind, that you want the status quo to remain, you want to continue, you want, in the next decade or so, once this government continues on its mandate, we are going to remove the class barrier. We have persons from single parent homes in places like Chateaubelair and Spring Village who are now becoming lawyers and doctors and engineers and professionals. Before being, and you will notice and you will accept this point, that before the ULP government, if you're not from a certain ilk or status or class, if you're not a bank manager's son or daughter, you are not going off to university. The government spends over $20 million annually on tertiary level education. So
do you think then that what you meant to have said is not what was placed as headlines?
Not what I meant. What I said was in fact a correct statement. The NDP.
So you're standing by what you said. You're standing by that.
The NDP. And identify the places where some of these NDP people they sit and have meetings. That is a fact. But unfortunately for Mr. Chanson of Eyewitness News, the headline in fact was a misrepresentation of what was said.
Okay, so it wasn't about people who live in Kingan, in Queen Drive, in Prospect, like where we are here now. It's not about that, right?
We are good citizens. In fact, I know there are people who believe in what I do personally from my private standpoint in assisting persons in North Leeward who are from these areas who also assist. So it would be incredible for me to go and make an assertion on or attack persons who are living in these areas. But there are some persons who happen to be NDP supporters who also happen to live in certain areas I've identified. And that is a fair point. And I know you would accept that point as well.
Where do you live?
Well, I basically stay at two houses. I commute sometimes from North Leeward where I spend a significant amount of time. And for instance, if I am in the High Court and to get into Kingston very early in the morning, it is really a hassle sometimes in terms of commuting. And I do stay in Cane Hall on occasions. For instance, if I'm working on a case, if I'm before the Court of Appeal,
you don't need to make an excuse.
I'm making the point.
You don't need to make an excuse for that. I don't think there's a reason to make an excuse for that.
I also we have a family home in Ratamill, just across the road here from you. You may not have known that. We have a family house in Cane Hall. We have a family house in Trumuka in North Leeward.
So some of the places that you have identified, Cane Hall,
Ratamill, Trumuka,
you're connected to these places as well, Carlos.
I do sometimes stay at several places.
Okay.
That is basically it. But predominantly, in fact, since 2012-13 thereabout, I have spent a significant amount of time, working with North Leeward, building. I've done a lot of.
You made the headline, Carlos, for residing in one area and registering to vote in another. Tell me about that.
Well, I've just explained it.
Is that fully legal?
The Constitution thing and the democratic process we're in, the Representation of the People's Act, makes provisions if you reside or you have ownership of several homes or you reside at several homes, you can make a choice or a determination as to where you want to vote. It is spelled out clearly in the Act. And for persons who are making these assertions, I will ask them to go and read the Representation of the People's Act. Do some homework. But the point remains that I'm a North Leeward man true and true. A lot of people would not have known this. Emran knows this. In fact, a few weeks ago, Emran came to North Leeward, and I asked him where he.
Do you have a property outside of North Leeward that you can claim that I have a property in Cane Hall or in Ratamill?
That I have legal title to?
That you have legal title to? Okay. Do you have one in North Leeward?
I have a family home in North Leeward.
You have a family home in North Leeward. If Patel Matthews was living in Mesopotamia, Marquardt, he's residing in Marquardt, but he's registered to vote in North Leeward. How would you take that?
We have had instances before. You look at the former representative Alpin Allen. He lives in Annesville. He's represented North Leeward and he has voted in North Leeward. Gerald Thompson, before active politics, resided in New York. He came back to St. Vincent. He has a family home in Montrose. He also has a family home in Chateaubelair, North Leeward. He votes and represented North Leeward. I mean, what is the issue? Being, you see the connection, but there are things I would want to point out. Clearly, Carlos James is an issue for the NDP and Patel Matthews, because week after week there is some issue that they're finding with the candidacy of Carlos James. And I'm saying to the NDP, if before I was selected as a candidate here, they said, oh well, we don't have to campaign, it is a clear victory for the NDP. Now we're seeing the NDP scattering all over the place in North Leeward, trying to continue with their campaign to hold on to the seat. And if Carlos James was not such a threat to the NDP losing the seat, then why week after week there's some sort of issue? Oh, Carlos James, I don't like the headlines, but the point, I like to work with the people. But you can see that clearly they're making, certain allegations, they want this and that. But the point is, let us go to the polls. Let the people decide who they want to represent them.
What's your relationship like with Patel Matthews? Are you guys friends? Do you say hello when you meet each other? Do you?
I do try my best to have a cordial relationship. I don't see the need for us to, have any issues of.
Give me an example of a cordial relationship that you have in terms of what happens when you meet each other.
I would acknowledge him. I mean, quite frankly, even if I'm at a function or event and he's there, I would also make it my business to acknowledge the presence of Patel Matthews. I mean, I don't. There's absolutely nothing.
Does he do the same for you?
Well, I'm not sure.
So he don't. But whenever you say hello, he doesn't respond.
I mean, the thing about it is, I am looking at this thing in a serious way. Politics to me is serious business. I am not going to get into the little, hearsay on the hissy fits about this and that and hold any man or woman as an enemy over this electoral process, because the process is bigger than Carlos James or the current MP. The process is about the people, and the process is about the continued development of our communities and our country as a whole. And by and large, I have no issue with any politician, both NDP or ULP.
Okay, let's move on. What is the one major thing that you want to get done in North Leeward?
Well, when I started, my first task and something I really wanted to get out of the way before facing the electorates was the completion of the Cumberland playing field. In a few weeks, we'll go to Cumberland and we will have an opening ceremony. It is by far the best rural sporting facility in this country to date, and only second to Annesville.
Really?
Yeah, it's a lovely and amazing facility, man. And I'm really.
You spearheaded the completion of that project?
The government has had the responsibility of completing, the ULP government, the Cumberland playing field. Naturally, as the caretaker, I would want to be I like to be very intimate and integral in certain projects. And that was one of the projects which I personally would visit on a weekly basis. That project to ensure that everything was running smoothly, sometimes even scout for persons for employment and say, look, I want this thing finished. I've called the contractor, the ground staff, the builders together and said, look, please give me this project. I want this project done before December. And I'm happy to say that in a few weeks we'll be opening that project. But by and large, apart from sport development, youth development in North Leeward, more assistance for farmers, expansion of the housing program in North Leeward. These are some of the major projects I want to see. Vocational training for young people, and I enjoy working with the elderly. I enjoy working with the elderly. I want to ensure that our senior citizens are well taken care of. I love working with them.
Do you think you have national appeal, not just North Leeward?
I see myself as a man who gets on the ground and get to work. I inspire and I empower people, and I see young people who are gravitating towards me, who voted the NDP in 2010, and I don't really think it's me. I think really it's them. And sometimes just whispering to someone, look, you can do better. You can, go far. You can go places. If I did it, you can do it. And you look in North Leeward right now. Since I've told my story in North Leeward, coming from a half-day school under an NDP government, when you write in your exams and you look at the floor, the board flooring, you're seeing the foundation of the building, and moving on from there, going on to working as a journalist, trained as a media and communications practitioner, going off to London studying law, having a master's, coming back and opening my own law practice. There are young people in North Leeward who are saying, if Carlos James can do it, I can do it.
Okay.
And I'm seeing a lot more persons now enrolled in evening classes.
Yes.
We have had a growth. No, seriously, I am personally sometimes paying for a lot of persons to go back to school. We have seen a lot of the persons who have dropped out of school and so on, whether through pregnancy or other things. We have seen a growth in persons going back to formal education.
Okay. We've got to take a station idea at the top here, right? I'm going to come back. I'm going to ask you a question. I don't want you to sidestep me. I don't want you to step around the issue. And I need an answer from you, Carlos. All right? Don't move. We're going to take a station idea at the top and we're going to come right back. Good morning to you, SVG. This is OMG Campaign Series Style.